Hey everyone, if you're new to my channel, my name is Jason. This is episode 2 as we use Dr. Weston Price's research that's been published in Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. We'll use the wealth of information that is in this research, where he had the privilege in the early 20th century to visit many different cultures all around the world. At that time, in the early 20th to mid 20th century, there were actually still areas on Earth that had largely not been influenced or had not been in contact with the modern world. Dr. Weston Price was looking for a control group, and since the West had already become quite sick and modern diseases had begun to appear that were previously only 50 years the previous generation, these things were not an issue. We have to keep into consideration that angina, which is chest pain due to cardiovascular disease, as well as an actual heart attack. The first documented case, I believe, was in the mid to late 19th century, so around 1860, 1890. This was the first documented heart attack. Prior to that, we did not, in the medical community, there was nothing of that sort, atherosclerosis, that had been documented in the population. So heart disease, to the degree that it is currently, is something relatively new. The research in nutrition and physical degeneration goes out of the West, out of the modernized world, and actually finds areas where they're eating their traditional cultural indigenous diets. These people, once examined, had an exceptional health. Their bone density was bigger, it was more dense, their skulls were thicker, basically due to appropriate nutrition. They seem to have a immunity to caries, as well as better formed arches and better formed skulls. There was no disorder or derangement in teeth. Teeth were nice, strong, and were not crowded in the mouth. The modernized people had, a lot of them were mouth breathers. Again, due to insufficient nutrition in the modernized world, bones did not develop to full capacity, and therefore the nasal passages were a lot more narrow. Basically, profound and significant changes in our jaw structure, as well as the whole skeletal structure in general, was affected. The isolated areas also, while it was being, TB, tuberculosis, was ravaging the modern society, these people seemed to be quite immune to this affliction, indicating that their immune system somehow was able to defend against TB. However, when they adopted modernization, primarily the modern foods, the white flour that was heavily processed, which is basically just sugar, as well as white sugar, and the introduction of seed oils. I'm going to hold off about seed oils, but in the coming episodes, this will be an important and one of the most significant topics: seed oils and the omega-6 concentration and the oxidative stress. I'm going to do the video, sorry, but yes, we'll go profoundly into seed oils and look into the research and come to a conclusion if seed oils are possibly a major cause of the modern diseases. So we understand that the modern diet had become profoundly high in carbohydrates, in refined carbohydrates. The white flour, sugar offer zero nutrients. It's strictly a glucose source that enters quite rapidly in the bloodstream, creating large amounts of insulin to be secreted. In my opinion, especially even looking at the COVID crisis, where the ACE2 receptor is primarily the receptor that the virus hooks onto. We all have ACE2 receptors. However, the younger people, the children, and the healthy people that are not obese and don't have many core morbidities seem to do quite well with COVID. Their immune system seems to be able to handle this new virus. However, obese people, especially even the young as 20 years old, once obesity sets in, they seem to be extremely vulnerable. So we know that nutrition is a foundation, an extremely underappreciated aspect of why we're so vulnerable to modern diseases. Looking back at the Swiss, we're trying to pull information, use the information in each chapter as a talking piece to kind of guide this search for optimal nutrition. As we go through this journey together, trying to look at the past, which is not that far ago, the early 20th century, we seemed to have not been so confused as compared to how we're confused now. This is all due to epidemiological studies that can't prove causations but are quite convenient in showing associations, which can help corporations to deceive people and guide the market so that we consume what makes the most money at the detriment of us being nutrient deficient. Don't forget, in modern society, the issue is that we have the recommended daily intake. Now, the recommended daily intake, again, we would assume that profound amount of science and knowledge of physiology has been incorporated into the RDIs to help guide us with optimal nutrition. However, unfortunately, this is not the case. What occurs is that they look at the modern disease and they take blood tests of the large population in modern society, and they look at the averages, and from there they say this seems to be the normal. It is concentrated, the RDIs, at making sure that we're not becoming deficient in certain nutrients, so they seem to have that. However, the idea that the RDIs are founded on preventing deficiencies, we do not know the optimal amounts of nutrients. The one interesting aspect is that Weston Price not only checked the health factors and many blood tests on the individuals in the isolated versus the modernized areas, but he also analyzed soil quality. He analyzed the health of the animals, the nutrient content of the animal foods, as well as certain areas that did have plant and wheat and other plant materials. He looked at the nutrient content and saw that it could be as high as 10 times the amount. So as a side note, we can see that one of the major issues is that we were able, with the adoption of plant agriculture 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, to obtain high amounts of carbohydrates and calories. However, carbohydrates don't usually carry nutrient contents. They're strictly energy sources, an option that we can run our body with. So let's look into the isolated and modernized Gaelics, see what they were eating. Let's go back just for a quick review of the isolated and modernized Swiss, who were eating primarily milk products from grass-fed cows and goats that were being grazed on pasture in the Swiss Alps that were isolated in these valleys. The soil quality obviously was extremely high, making the grass-fed nutrients within these ruminant animals quite high also, which also means that the raw grass-fed milk had up to 10 times the amount of nutrients that we currently see in the cows in modernized areas being fed an inappropriate food source such as grains, not having cows always grass-fed. They could be completely locked in barns, and you don't have to be a vegan to disagree with those farming methods. And just because we have made meat quite unethical in a way because of the way the animal is isolated and confined, not being fed their original diet. This should not say that we should avoid meat. It means that we should reform, in a way, right, the farming practices back to a more sustainable and regenerative method, which is basically what rural farming was. The ruminant animals were out on the field and they were actually adding nutrients and building top soil. When we one of the important points that I wanted to make at the end of, and that I did make at the end of the first episode, was that the Swiss had exceptional health, as we can see, the isolated, and they lived on what we would consider a on-balance and quite restrictive diet, where they're primarily just dealing with milk products, and making cheeses with their diet supplemented with the rye bread. So they're drinking milk, eating cheese, and having some rye bread, which I guarantee you does not add up to 250 grams, which is the current recommendation with the high carbohydrate, low fat, limited diet. These people were drinking full fat dairy. They were consuming the saturated fat. If we look at the nutrient content of rye bread, we'll see that all of the fat soluble vitamins for these extremely and exceptionally healthy human beings were achieved through animal food. You need vitamin A. This is a fat soluble vitamin. There was no vitamin A in that rye bread to achieve our requirements. So A, D3, vitamin K2, vitamin E, all of the fat-soluble vitamins were obtained solely through animal food, and they didn't really have to eat a wide variety of different animal sources. Each animal source is pretty much complete in and of itself, giving us the omega-6 and 3 in a bioavailable and proper proportion, the complete easily digested complete protein, the saturated and monounsaturated fats, so a wide variety of many different fats. All of this was achieved, and these nutrients that are only found in the animal foods. You have all of these complete essential nutrients available in whether it's chicken, fish. As we're going to see, some were coastal dwellers, and they were relying strictly on fish, basically, to sustain their diet and get those fat activators, as Weston Price mentioned. Let's look at oh, sorry. So what I was trying to say is, the Swiss, how did they obtain optimal health without, besides the rye bread, any of the legumes, any of the fruits, any of the wide variety of vegetables that we're being told are essential for health? Now, the straight fact is that what is essential for the body is the complete protein with those essential amino acids that the body cannot produce, as well as the essential 6s and 3 omega fatty acids, which are basically signaling fats that have in some way quite similar to a hormonal effect. The monounsaturated as well as saturated fat is a lot of what the actual structure and energy that we use. So it's not to say that the fruits and vegetables are unhealthy. Of course not. But what we're saying is, in modern society, we're being criticized for. Just won't be long. I'm doing a video, Noah. What was I saying? I lost track. Yeah, about the fruits and vegetables. In the West, based on the food guides, we would literally be criticized for not eating fruits and vegetables, as if we cannot obtain optimal health without these fruits and vegetables, which is not true. It is not essential, and that is backed up by basic physiology, like I just said, where you actually just need your protein with the essential amino acids, the essential fats. You do need saturated fat and cholesterol. You need the saturated fats because there's fat soluble vitamins, And these are all achieved through plant foods, the D3 that is not in the plant kingdom. So you're not going to get that by going out and getting fruits and vegetables. It's backed by geography. It's just a fact that many areas, example in Canada where I live, the fruits and vegetables that we would consume would be seasonal and would not be the bulk of our diet. Therefore, the Swiss did not have the landscape to produce an abundant amount of these plant materials for their diet besides the rye bread. So this is an important non-biased information. It's non-biased information that we can objectively look and go, well, we can't deny that these healthy Swiss individuals had optimal health and it had exactly what we want to attain right now compared to our epidemic of modern diseases. And we cannot deny that, well, these people managed to pull it off without the fruits and vegetables. Let's see the Gaelic. So the isolated and modernized Gaelics, they were primarily fisher folks, and they raised sheep. They lived on fish as the primary food source and supplemented that with oats. One of their most nutritious and prized meals, and what really sustained these people, were baked cod head stuffed with cod liver as well as oats. Again, optimal health, great immunity to tuberculosis compared to modernized individuals and cultures that were also Gaelic. So they were genetically similar, same culture, except we're going to see how Weston Price was able to really see the decline in the degeneration once they left this simple fish and oats diet. Again, modernized recommendations would say that this is an extreme diet, that it is restricting and not going after complete food groups. This is just an idea that we've been fed over and over. It's only due, obviously, to transportation that I can get a wide variety of jackfruit and cantaloupes and avocados and coconuts here in Canada. I would not be able to get those. Not to mention, let's go back a century or so before GMO, genetically modifying these plants, were able to be performed. Most of these vegetables that we consume are not even actual original plants, species. They've just come from maybe one mother plant, and they've been modified into these modern fruits, which don't come from nature. Therefore, they are not in balance possibly with enzymes and anti-nutrients, and the amount of bran compared to the amount of starches. It's all been modified. Okay, let's look at the Gaelics. So I highlighted the excerpts just to jump around. So these stories have included a description of wonderfully fine teeth and their stalwart physiques and strong characters. The Isle of Lewis has a population of about 20,000, made up almost entirely of fisher folks, crofters, and sheep raisers. And their basic food, the basic food of these islanders, are fish and oat products with a little bit of barley. The fishing about the outer hubris is specifically favorable, and small seafoods including lobsters, crabs, oysters, and clams are abundant. An important and highly relished article of the diet has been the baked cod's head stuffed with chopped liver and oatmeal. Don't forget that these hardworking people did not live in abundance where there's grocery stores and convenience stores everywhere offering you oops, just a minute, there's somebody calling. I hope it doesn't cut the video. All right, so we often say don't mix carbohydrates and fat together because it's prone to store fat. You have carbohydrates as an energy source. It will be used first, and then if you add a high amount of fat, chances are that will be stored. So it promotes fat when you mix carbohydrate and fat together. But these people, it would have been optimal to try and can continually store a little bit fat. They didn't live in abundance, and a certain little bit of fat is actually a safety. So it was kind of smart that in their case, they were mixing the cod head and the cod liver and the oatmeal together, which would be extremely nutritious. Now, we all know about cod liver, for example. The cod is, and all of these fish that they were eating are a wonderful source of DHA and EPA from which is an omega-3. Each of them they would acquire the also omega-6. This would be naturally in the foods. Again, none of these individuals had ever obtained omega-6 from plant fats or seed oils. This is a new addition, and again, I'll mention we're going to go deep into the seed oil question, as I hope that I can give you the evidence that the addition of these plant fats that are refined, heavily processed, are downright toxic. And Weston Price, in the early 20th century, when they were just starting to flood the food chain, he had already caught on that there was something possibly wrong, very wrong, with the introduction of seed oils. The splendid teeth in figure 5 that I'll pop up when I edit this video, the splendid physique development of the native Gaelic fisher folks is characterized by excellent teeth and well-formed faces and dental arches. Again, well-formed faces. There was significant differences in the structure of the face. Again, the nasal cavities of these people were broader, well developed. They could actually breathe through their nose. The teeth were not crowded. Wisdom teeth did not need to be pulled. They had exceptional dental strength, and so it's important. Teeth are a window over to overall health. When your teeth start rotting out of your mouth early, or you're starting to get caries, it's a good sign that something is not good. So the abundance of fish makes the cost of living very low for these individuals, and it would be difficult to find examples of womanhood combining a higher degree of physical perfection and more exalted ideals than these weather-hardened toilers. So again, these individuals, the geography of where these people were did not allow fruits and vegetables to be grown. Another example now, 2 in a row, of people that did not incorporate any substantial, if at all, amounts of plant materials. Now we hear about the antioxidant benefits and all of these phytonutrients. A lot of this is hype. The antioxidants, like I had mentioned before, oxidation is caused by the use of our body to produce energy through oxygen. There's byproducts that need to be neutralized, and our body has natural endogenous antioxidants to neutralize the byproduct of our body using oxygen. Even though there's antioxidants that are present in fruits and vegetables, does not necessarily mean that it is bioavailable or that it would change any amount of health. If you're receiving an adequate amount of antioxidants through natural biophysiological processes, and the oxidative stress has been neutralized, adding more antioxidants does not necessarily make it better, not necessarily unhealthy. But again, we're looking for optimal nutrition, and we're trying to decipher, are there any myths that we have been fed? And again, this diet that created optimal health in these individuals living in a rugged area, these people would be considered in danger of nutrient deficiencies, from our opinion, from the current paradigm, and the authorities would say that this is restrictive, that there's probable nutrient deficiencies that are occurring. Where did these guys get vitamin C? Where did they get a substantial amount of vitamin C? Indeed, vitamin C is present in animal foods, especially the thymus, the liver. So we have to understand that, as we see here, they did consume organs, and vitamin C is present in meats also. Something that modern society has been convinced is not the case. We are particularly concerned with the people of early Scot descent who possess a physique that rivals that found in almost any place in the world. We are concerned primarily with the physical development of the people, and particularly with their freedom from dental caries and tooth decay. One has only to see them carrying the burden of peat, or to observe the ease with which the fisherwomen on the docks carry their tubs of fish back from the cleaning table to the tiers of packing barrels, to be convinced that these people have not only been trained to work, but have the physiques equal to meet that task. These studies include the making of dental examinations, the taking of photographs and obtaining of saliva samples for chemical analysis, the gathering of detailed clinical records of the people living there, and the collection of samples of food for chemical analysis and detailed nutritional data. There are no dairy animals on this particular item. Their nutrition is provided by their oat products and fish, and by a very limited amount of vegetable foods. Lobster and flatfish are the very important parts of their foods. Fruits are practically unknown, yet the physiques of these people are remarkable. Now, again, I'm trying to use this individual, Weston Price's research, to bypass my own biases and to try and objectively justify my way of eating, which I'll get in as the episodes go, but I don't want to just push my biases. I want to try and come to the conclusion that I have, and take you on that journey and see if you come to the same conclusions as me by showing this objective facts. In the interior of the Isle of Lewis, the teeth of growing boys and girls had a very high degree of perfection, and only 1.3 out of every 100 examined that had been attacked by any dental caries. An important part of the study of these islanders was the observations made on the conditions at the fringe of this civilization. The group consisted largely of adults and young people. In account of 100 individuals appearing to be between the age of 20, 40, and 25 were already wearing artificial teeth. So we have on the same area the people living isolated that are immune to dental caries, and then you have the same genetic culture living on the fringes, being in contact by the boats and docks with modern societies, starting to eat some of the modern foods, and they're losing all of their teeth. As a side note, this is often an issue with vegans, especially raw fruit vegans that lose their teeth. They just rot out. Is it the high amount of sugar? Probably, but it's also, in my opinion, deficiencies in their nutrients, because vegans are not being told the truth about vitamin A in beta carotene form that is poorly converted in some populations, is virtually unconvertible into vitamin A. So if somebody is being pushed to go vegan, but they don't know that possibly they cannot convert the beta carotene to vitamin A, an essential fat soluble vitamin, then they might get very sick and they won't go very far with the vegan diet. What I have noticed is that veganism is in a way like a fast, and most of us can fast for an excessive amount of time for the first year, because we have a lot of healing and a lot of junk and toxicity built up. So often people that have been eating an omnivorous diet, once they do go vegan for the first year or so, because nutrient deficiencies actually can develop very slowly over years because of the stored nutrients that an individual has prior to becoming a vegan. So that being said, it does take a while. People often come from a standard diet of junk food and processed food, and then they switch to a vegan diet, feel better, have a fasting effect, a meat fast in a way, but it's not sustained, and in the long run the nutrient deficiencies do catch up on you, and the nutrient deficiencies catch up to you. The inferior protein eventually can become an issue, as well as the wide variety of anti-nutrients that can affect the already difficult to absorb minerals in plants that look good on paper, but if we go further into the research, bioavailability is an issue. Example, heme iron from animal food compared to non-heme that is poorly absorbed, even though we think there's high content of iron, let's say in spinach. Well, what is the absorption? The difference in physical appearance of the of the child life of Stornoway from that of the interior of the Isle of Lewis was striking. We found a family of the opposite coast of the island, where there's two boys shown in the upper corner here. One had excellent teeth and the other had rampant caries. These boys were brothers eating at the same table, but the older boy with excellent teeth was still enjoying the primitive foods of oatmeal, oat cakes, and seafood with a limited amount of dairy products, and the younger boy, seen to the left, had extensive tooth decay because he had adopted the seed oils, the white flour, the sugar, and boom, obviously his health deteriorated. He wasn't eating significant animal food, so his omega-3s, his fats weren't being properly obtained. On examination, the growing boys and girls disclosed the fact that only one tooth out of every 100 examined had ever been attacked. So the general physical development of these children was excellent. The isolated individuals, again, there's pictures to show. Those living on primitive foods, they only had 0.7 caries per teeth for every 100, and those living on the modern food had 16.3, or 23 times as many. And I think I highlighted a lot more things here, but there's a lot of repetition. Let me see here. It had been noted that individuals with rampant tooth decay were also susceptible to pulmonary tuberculosis. It is important for us to keep this picture in mind in its relationship to the high incidence of tuberculosis as we read succeeding chapters and find the part played by modernization in breaking down the defenses of individuals to infective processes, including TB. Again, during the COVID epidemic, I really said, wow, it's the nutrition. We are ill, and I think a large part has to do primarily with insulin resistance. Any form of insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome. I think this constant stress on the body just overwhelms the immune system, makes us extremely vulnerable. Not to mention, I think that the modernized society is nutrient deficient. A lot of our food is fortified. We think we're getting it, but they're actually synthetic versions of vitamins, and not the same as true vitamins created by bacteria in ruminants' stomachs. It's not real vitamins. He was typical of the stalwart production raised on the native foods, and his granddaughter had pinched nostrils and narrowed face. Again, the bone development that is not optimized during development due to nutrient deficiencies, which we do see. We see in the modern West, especially. We all get our wisdom teeth pulled. Why doesn't our teeth fit into our mouth? Again, it's because in the modernized, rich society of abundance, we're actually either eating foods that are stealing nutrients, not allowing, as well as not getting the animal food or the appropriate amount of nutrients. This was also seen when when agriculture developed 10 to 12,000 years ago. We saw the same thing. The health of the people starting agricultural farming, when they moved away from hunters and gatherers, their stature went down, the mortality increased, overall health, dental health, abscesses, just a degeneration, an overall physical degeneration occurred when agriculture occurred. It allowed our population to explode because of the calorie availability through starches and carbohydrates. However, the nutrient content was severely reduced. So we have a large population of nutrient deficient, nutrient starved people with an overconsumption of calories, creating a deficient, obese individual that is prone to all the modern diseases and becomes a great economic source for corporations, for big pharma. and for the medical community that is more of a business and could care less about preventative medicine. A dietary program competent to build stalwart men and women, rugged boys and girls, is provided the residents of these barren islands with their wind and storm swept coast by a diet of oats used as oat cake and oatmeal porridge, together with fish products including some fish organs and eggs. A seriously degenerated stock followed the displacement of this diet. Degenerated stock developed the displacement of this diet, with a typical modern diet consisting of white breads, sugar, jam, syrups, chocolate, coffee, some fish without liver, canned vegetables. Okay, so again, the claims that for example, somebody that is doing a quite animal-based nutrition, we see that no modern diseases, eating animal food was not causing cancer, was not leading to heart disease. They were not becoming nutrient deficient, and so far we've seen 2 cultures that were attaining a very optimal health with only 2 or 3 food sources. Therefore, my diet, which is a ketogenic diet that was transitioned into almost a complete carnivore diet, which is still a diet that induces quite often a ketogenic state, which indicates that I'm running primarily only on fat fuels. We look at this, and we hopefully will start seeing that a carnivorous diet is not only healthy, it is what made our ancestors and previous cultures very healthy. The fact that if you're getting nutrients, the body only cares about one thing: the bloodstream. Am I getting all of the amino acids to build protein? Am I getting the proper essential omega-6 and 3s so that I can signal inflammatory and anti-inflammatory mediators? Am I getting a good source of cholesterol, since my brain is 25% cholesterol? Am I getting a good source of monounsaturated fat as well as saturated fat, where I'm getting the A, D, E, K2, D3? Am I getting the appropriate fat-soluble vitamins? And when we look at this ensemble, if we can go through and do just a little bit of research and find out that, wow, like, okay, I'm eating this food, it's an animal food, and it has this. I got these nutrients covered, and can I get these nutrients here from this sort? Perfect. I managed to pull off all of my nutrients through, let's say, a limited amount of food, maybe just by fish, eggs, and some meat, a little bit of cheese and meat, just a very limited amount, not going towards fruits and vegetables, not going towards legumes, not going towards wheat. This is not necessarily, when we put things into context, throughout history and the limitations throughout geography before transportation, we realize that we should not buy into the propaganda when we see that we're eating a very simplified diet, that it's extreme, because we're not eating every single thing, that we would have never eaten these wide varieties of every single possible group before transportation. Therefore, again, you can add these plant products, but don't be convinced by the new plant-based propaganda that it is essential and that you are seriously putting your health at risk if you don't go after these non-essential sources, aka legumes, wheat, plants in the form of fruit, vegetables, or beans. All right, thanks a lot, guys.